Donald Trump's former attorney, Rudy Giuliani, we're just learning, has been disbarred in New York. CNN's Caitlin Polantz is with me, as well as CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson. Caitlin, what more do we know about this?
This is the Supreme Court in New York. They have been looking at a disciplinary case against Rudy Giuliani for his service as a lawyer for several months, even years now. And finally, after suspending him, he was unable to practice law for some time. He is now formally disbarred. This is the person who was not just the mayor of New York. He was the top federal prosecutor in Manhattan, deeply well respected by the bar there, clearly someone who had great influence over prosecutions when he was there. Now, in recent years, on the defense side, he had picked up what Donald Trump wanted to do and took it into court. And in this opinion that is now being issued by the New York Supreme Court, they're saying that all of these charges are about Rudy Giuliani pushing false and misleading statements as an attorney for Donald Trump and his campaign after the 2020 election to courts, to lawmakers, and to the public at large, and that nothing that Giuliani has said in these proceedings that he has faced in the attorney discipline system have made it seem as if he were acting in good faith or that he had the knowledge that these things were actually true. And so thus, this is Rudy Giuliani formally losing his ability to practice law, effective immediately, disbarred in New York, and that will be reflected in any court all over the country. Erica?
I mean, that is really something. Joey, you have practiced law in the state of New York for a number of years. I mean, just walk us through in broader context, right? And as Caitlin alluded to, he went from the mayor of New York. We all remember Rudy Giuliani, certainly in the days after 9/11. We remember how much he figured on the national stage for many people. So many people were familiar with him. Just talk to me about that fall and the change that we've seen over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, it's very sad, no matter how you slice it, what political party you're on, et cetera. Rudy Giuliani has been a fixture in New York for quite some time. I could recall him running for mayor the very first time against a person by the name of David Dinkins. He lost. David Dinkins was the mayor at the time. Prior to him running for mayor, of course, Erica, he was the U.S. attorney, that is the United States attorney of the Southern District. We prosecuted a lot of high-level crimes and really garnered a lot of favor from the public for sticking up for people and really for going after even the mob. There was no one off limits. He would carry people out of their offices in cuffs as the U.S. attorney, and that really catapulted his profile. But at that particular time, Erica, just walking you through that, what had occurred was that he was revered in New York, and that's what allowed him to run for mayor. And he didn't give up. After losing to David Dinkins, he then, who I worked for a brief period of time, he then, that is Rudy Giuliani, won. He ran again, won, became mayor, and did an exceptional job. Cleaned up the streets, was very law and order, was ethical beyond reproach, I think was the conventional wisdom. He walked the talk, talked the walk, did what he needed to do. And I'm just not sure what happened thereafter. I know he built his business after leaving the mayoralty. We should note that he handled 9/11 with such grace. He was known as America's mayor for quite some time thereafter because of the manner and the leadership that he brought to bear that related to the tough time the city was enduring. And there was even discussion about extending his term so that he could preside over that. And so then you had him, I guess, caught up in another circumstance, and that was this circumstance relating to the former president. And, you know, listen, Erica, as lawyers, we need to and continue to push the envelope. We have to make arguments that sometimes may not be directly in keeping with the law, but at least are supported by good faith, have a factual basis, and maybe they're supported by public policy. Laws change all the time, and they change because of the great arguments that lawyers make. And they change because society changes, and things that were in contemplation when a law began may not be in contemplation as the society evolves. But you cannot, repeat, cannot just give baseless allegations to anyone, particularly a court of law. It can't happen. And so after this 6-day liability hearing as it related to his license, 16 of the charges were sustained. And so, you know, last thing, Erica, you know, in law, there's perfection eludes us all, but we do the best we can, and we argue, you know, and Caitlin mentioned this, you know, in good faith, right? And so the reality is that if you don't make a good faith argument, that's a problem. If you just make things up, that's a problem. And if you have basic allegations, that's a problem. And so he was held accountable. And when you're held accountable, you lose your license. So, you know, sad. without question, for all he did and for all he was. But you know what? This is where it lands when you do things you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, Joey Jackson, Caitlin Polantz, appreciate you both being ready and available for us on that breaking news. Again, Rudy Giuliani disbarred in the state of New York. Thank you both. Joining me now, Andrew Kurtzman. He's the author of Giuliani, The Rise and Tragic Fall of America's Mayor. You literally wrote the book twice, I believe, on Rudy Giuliani. The fact that we have now arrived at this point, the Giuliani of 2024, really 2020, versus the 2001 Rudy Giuliani, does any of this surprise you?
Well, it doesn't surprise me in that the wheels of this disbarment cycle have been turning for a great long time. But in a larger sense, this is a pretty extraordinary development in the kind of arc of Rudy Giuliani's fall, right? And I think, you know, he's been indicted now in Atlanta. He's been indicted in Arizona. Mm-hmm. He's bankrupt. Right, he's facing potential jail, but in a way, I think that this might hurt Rudy Giuliani more than almost anything else. The law is ingrained in him. He once called the law the love of my life. He almost became a priest and then decided to become an attorney because that was just as much as a calling to him, and to be disbarred, especially in New York, where he served as this trailblazing prosecutor in the 1980s, probably the most famous prosecutor in the world at the time in the 1980s, a beloved figure in many quarters. Now to be disbarred in the same state is just incredible humiliation, which must really strike at the heart of kind of who he is.
It's striking at the heart of who he is. It is also it is just remarkable that there seem to have been so many instances over the last several years where it seemed like people were trying to maybe rein him in a little bit, right? And the resistance was there.
I mean, Giuliani was kind of on top of the world going into the presidential race in 2008. He was the front runner for a year. He had just made about, I think, $10 million as a consultant after 9/11. But after he kind of bombed out of that race in 2008, his career just went way downhill. And it was only Donald Trump in 2016 who kind of brought him back to relevance.
And now we see where that has ultimately led in terms of reigniting that partnership. Andrew, great to have you here today. Thank you.